Hello comic fans, here's Earl Grey with another manga special with four manga series, not about Blade of the Immortal or Search and Destroy. These two books are just for reference purposes, since Hiroaki Samura is the mangaka behind Wave Listen to Me. A totally different subject, totally different manga, but fantastic as well. And Atsushi Kaneko, who gave us more recently Search and Destroy, had done before Wet Moon, and this is fantastic as well. But before that, I want to talk about two mangas that I haven't enjoyed as much, if at all. Why I've picked up this particular tome here of Tokyo Summer of the Dead, the collected edition by Shiichi Kugura, I don't know. To be honest, I know because, zombie theme and bloody red cover, hardcover, that was obviously enough for me. But when I opened this book up here, it was a shrink wrapped in cellophane, so it was really a blind buy in the Christmas rush. Usually I don't do this, but yeah. And this is what I got, a big-eyed schoolgirl in uniform before a Photoshop background. Summarizes almost everything that I don't like in mangas. But yeah, the zombie theme here is a nice contradiction to the overall and inevitable cuteness of this manga. Otherwise, yeah, it's a really more or less generic retelling of The Walking Dead or whatever zombie story came before The Walking Dead. So if you like zombies, if you like more typical manga, this is probably something for you. Well, I've read a good part of it under the Christmas tree for my family and got some laughs out of it. So this was pretty fun, but otherwise I wouldn't recommend it. If you somehow, like me, interested in more unusual manga. This is sort of an unusual collection, a Seed of Fear, Saat der Angst by Masaaki Nakayama, of short stories, which is already pretty unusual, about the tricks that our perception does with us sometimes when we see in the corner of our eyes monsters, unusual stuff, and then it's gone. And the stories are very soon finished. Everything is, as far as I've read it, I'm on just through a third of this book here. You see something unusual, frightening, but then it's gone and story ends. So that's the reason why I really haven't finished the whole book here, because it's really not a page turner. You read one or two stories with the same trick, and so I don't know what I will think of it when I've one day finished the whole book here. But I finished each of these series, so far as you see it here, in one day. So these are really page turners, and Wave Listen to Me, just to start with this, because this is available in English, and I got it in English. This is a longer lasting series. I think the volume 8 will come out this February or so. It's about Minare, this girl that you can see here, who works for the radio. And in the beginning, she's just heartbroken. Her boyfriend left her, and she meets in a pub this guy here who works for a radio station, but he doesn't tell her that he works for the radio station. Instead, he records her weird ramble about her rotten boyfriend who took her money and ran away. And next day he sends this on the radio station, because this is some weird concept of real radio and Big Brother-like radio, and or whatever you will call this genre. And so the stuff is broadcasted, and of course Minare is very angry about that, and she storms the radio station, grabs the microphone, and off the cuff does another ramble. And of course she has talent for this kind of stuff, and this flawed radio man recognizes that potential, and then the story goes on, and it's just fantastic about adult people, flawed adult people who are most of the time are their own worst enemies, and full of contradictions, complex characters, but very relatable characters, probably of all the stuff that I've said before. In the beginning, it reminded me very much of Seinfeld, the TV comedy. There's not some unique character like Kramer in the story here, but otherwise, it's just a couple of people that act in believable, flawed ways. I really love these kind of connecting covers with the back cover here. I mean, the premise of the story here is so much against every recipe of making a successful manga. The whole trope and concentration of the theme radio is so anachronistic in a way, because who cares about radio for real today? And this is, they speak about the problems of modern radio here, but when it really sings are these parts when they create some audio drama for the radio, and we see all the stuff that they are doing here, and what they try to create the atmosphere when she's digging a grave for a boyfriend, because that's the stuff that they try to play here, the murder of her boyfriend, and how he's put into a grave and comes back to life. But it's all, of course, all play. And and there are these very short but highly enjoyable afterwards by Hiroaki Samura, who says that he thinks of him as too old to do samurai comics all time, and wanted to do a manga in which nobody dies for once. So Wave, Listen to Me, highly enjoyable, wonderful manga, and good soap opera, and tiny bit of romance, but not so much that it can't be for man as well, as I've proven. So, and then to another favorite mangaka of mine. It's a bit silly to talk about favorite mangakas if I have just read such a tiny amount of them, but I'm pretty quick with assorting them. Big Eyes, not for me. Sculion uniforms, not for me. But he does here stylistically everything right, Atsushi Kaneko, and as he proved with Search and Destroy. And this is another surefire hit. It's about this Inspector Sato, who is intrigued by this lady here, supposedly a killer, and wait, let's see here how this starts. Yeah, with a bit of color here, he chases her. And this is nicely made. I really love these titles that are always done a bit differently. And this is, of course, a reference to Georges Méliès, silent movie pioneer with very experimental stuff. If you know about the old Smashing Pumpkins album and the music videos for Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, it's a total homage to that one here. Give me a double page like this here and I'm instantly know that I'm right there. So it's about this a young dude here, and he got injured during some investigation, but he doesn't know how that actually happened. But since then he has this piece of metal inside his brain which is wandering, so he has constant hallucinations and wants to figure that out and chases this girl and works inside an openly corrupt police department. So there are lots of stuff that are real that have to be figured out, but the story is constantly chopped up through because of his hallucinations, his problems to concentrate, and since the story is told more or less through his eyes, not in a POV perspective or point of his view, but we follow him along. So the story is a bit jumpy, and this makes it on one hand very difficult to read, on the other very multi-layered, because fiction and reality and time jumps happen very quick sometimes, and very ambiguous, and we have very strange side characters. Look, this panel when he falls to the ground. It's a bit like one's perception when you fall, or that everything happens in slow motion. The art is really fantastic and carries the story, which is very well thought out, even though this is really stuff you have to reread a second time. I mean, this is easier said than done, I know, when you read through these 3 volumes. By the way, this story here is concluded after these 3 volumes. Like Search and Destroy was a 3-parter, and that's a fantastic achievement, I think, if it is not prolonged forever. I mean, Wave, listen to me. I will read this when, even if it will be 50 trades or so, I think, if it contains this high standard. But with Wet Moon, it was a fantastic series, and I'm really glad that he afterwards did the Search and Destroy, a totally different thing. In a way, it was, but both series are clearly show a clearly unique vision on comic drawing, and Atsushi Kaneko takes some pride in not reading manga, and he really doesn't want to be a mangaka, but he wants to create comics. And even though he says that he discovered Charles Burns, for instance, very later on in his career, so he said that Charles Burns didn't really influence him, but he's very flattered by the comparison, because he does like Charles Burns. And yeah, come on, if you see some story twists, and especially the villains in the last part of Wet Moon, I don't think that you will see here some spoilers. It really feels very Charles Burns-ish to me. But this is absolutely not a wrong thing or mistake or something. Yeah, give me more Charles Burns-like comics and I will be all over them every time. So yeah, this was basically my review about Wave, Listen to Me and Wet Moon. with some other random remarks on other mangas that you may want to check out if you're more into manga. So, thanks for listening and watching. Goodbye.